You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Dr. Shyama Mathews. How to be nice to your vagina.
Welcome. I'm super excited for this one. I say that every time. I don't know what else to say, but I really am today. And you know why? Because we're going to talk about gynecology. We're going to talk about our bits. And I think that as a woman in my late 50s, I just think this is a conversation that so many women are having, and they're not having it with the people that have the information. So that is why today we have Dr. Shyama Mathews. She is a board certified OBGYN, a minimally invasive gynecologic surgeon. And she is also a certified menopause specialist. So right now you're like, I got to pull over for this one. She's a mom and a wife herself, and she wants to help women of all ages maintain their own quality of life while keeping up with the crazy day-to-day needs of our families and our careers. She practices to help women make the best decisions for themselves, and her areas of expertise are, and raise your hand if you've ever had any of these, endometriosis, fibroids, chronic pelvic pain, laparoscopy. How do you say that, Shyama?
Laparoscopic surgery.
Laparoscopic surgery, polycystic ovary syndrome, and premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Did I say that one right?
Yeah, you did.
I don't even know what all these are. I mean, I'm so excited to learn. So, well, first of all, in your journey through medicine, what was the moment where you're like, I really want to help? Because you're young when you're in med school. You're not thinking about women who are trying to get pregnant, or women who are trying to have babies, or dealing with menopause, or having all of these challenges. What led you down this path and having this passion and expertise?
So I actually went to med school thinking I wanted to do pediatrics.
Okay.
Many before me did. And then I realized that pediatrics is not for me.
Okay.
In my rotations. And I was like, whoa, yeah, kids are cute, but their parents are not. And this is really annoying. So
I used to be a nursery school teacher, and that was my thing. The kids are cute and the parents are not. Sorry, parents. Okay, go ahead.
I know. And now I'm one of those parents. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I realized I really liked hands-on type of stuff. So when I was in my rotations, I was like doing surgical stuff. I was in the operating room, and I thought it was so cool. And then I was doing my OBGYN rotations, and like, oh my gosh, delivering babies and taking care of these women. I just thought that was super fun. So I went down the OBGYN route because I just loved everything about taking care of women. I mean, women are awesome. And when they really are, when they have the time or they try to commit to their care, they really want to get better, and they take care of everyone else. And so it was really just, that's what kind of got me to OBGYN. And then when I was doing my residency training, doing obstetrics and gynecology, so the whole delivering baby part, and then all the other stuff, I've really kind of gravitated toward the other stuff. I kind of gravitated back towards surgery and doing surgery for women. And I thought, wow, isn't it amazing that now we can do these really crazy surgeries with small incisions? Women can get out of the hospital in the same day, back to work in a couple of weeks. Like, who has time for downtime? So, it was just so cool that you could do that. So I kind of, again, paved my way to doing a minimally invasive surgical fellowship. And all like stars aligned, and I got a job where I was just doing GYN and GYN surgery, and now I focus on all those other things, because in our training as OBGYNs, you spend a lot of time on the obstetrics part. You like deliver babies, you do C-sections, like that's all you are, done, like as many as you can, but you don't really spend a lot of time on the other stuff. So I had to kind of seek out mentors and training for all the other things, like menopause and endometriosis and chronic pelvic pain and fibroids. And these are things that are so common that women struggle with. And there really isn't a ton of information or support out there, unfortunately. Now I think with social media, these women can find each other, which is nice, and like find information, which is great. But a lot of times you feel very isolated because if you don't if you're not comfortable talking about it with your doctor, or like your doctor doesn't know a ton about it, like you're kind of left to suffer kind of on your own, which is, unfortunate. So yeah, I got involved with other kind of side projects and things like that too, that kind of support all of this energy. And I have a lot of fun now with doing education stuff for podcasts and
I love it.
talking to my patients about it. I do talks sometimes in the evenings for the community. It's kind of fun.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, let's just start talking. I want to start talking about, and sorry, young people, but we're going to talk about menopause. And you know what, young people, my mom died when she was 64 and I had little kids. I was like 30. And so the last thing that I ever thought I should talk to my mom about was what happens after you have kids, what happens in the other part of your life. We didn't talk about it. And so I think it's a really important conversation that is becoming more common, but not really. And so I hear a lot of women talking about symptoms of menopause almost like as a death sentence or or an excuse.
Yeah.
Right. And also I think, and I want to talk about this too, and I'll just sort of let you riff, but I think also I've experienced a lot of people being aversive to lots of different hormone replacement therapy because of a lack of maybe current information, trying to DIY it because there is so much on the internet and ads. So if you just that's a potpourri of topics, but I think it's important. So let's just start. Let's talk about what is it that we are misinformed often about menopause? What should we expect?
Right. So just some definitions.
Yes.
Menopause, right? Average age of menopause is 51. We say that we are in menopause once you've gone through 1 full year of no period.
Okay.
But perimenopause, which is sort of the time leading up to menopause when some of those symptoms can start kicking in, that can actually start anywhere from 5 to 7 years before menopause. So that's in your, early 40s, to mid 40s, right? Yeah. So it isn't actually like a, irrelevant topic for young women, because I do think everyone should sort of know what's coming down the road.
Yeah.
It's coming for all of us, right?
Right.
We're all
God willing, as my mother would say. Yes.
And so what are the symptoms? So the common ones that we all talk about: hot flashes, night sweats, difficulty sleeping. Ones that we talk less about are the mental health side effects, like things like anxiety and depression. So all of those kinds of, mood swings and irritability and less ability to cope. So, kind of it's there's a lot of pressure on you kind of thing. So those kind of mental kind of things. There are other sort of body things as well: vaginal dryness, pain with intercourse, how your skin changes, how your hair changes, libido changes. So all of these kinds of things can happen. Not everyone experiences the same amount. In the years leading up, you may still be getting a period, it may get a little irregular. Bleeding can be increased, decreased, frequent, infrequent. I mean, it's it can be kind of anywhere. And some of these symptoms can kind of creep in and out. And the reason it is that way in those years is because our hormones are sort of wacky. They're not kind of doing their normal pattern anymore. They're getting really irregular and erratic. So all of these symptoms kind of fluctuate during that time as well. And it's our body trying to adjust to this new level. So once we get past that 1 full year, our levels start to decline and kind of stay more steady low. And it's our body trying to equilibrate with that. And that's where all this stuff starts happening. So everyone experiences it in different ways. And there are some, less common ones, like some people actually, instead of feeling hot, they feel cold all the time. Some people experience higher libido, not lower libido. Other people will have thyroid things or allergies that develop. I mean, so there's some, heart palpitations. There are some unique ones too.
Fun.
Right? So, I mean, basically anytime a woman comes in and says, I've got all this stuff going on, could it be menopause? And my answer is yeah, it absolutely could be menopause. Let's figure out, make sure it's not anything terrible and it's not, not something not menopause. And then if we rule all those bad things out and we're back to menopause, let's figure out what ways we can do to help it, because anything can absolutely be menopause if you're in this phase of your life.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I think the other thing that you said that's really important is, okay, so rule out, what it's not. And I just want to do a commercial for you, is that, well, I just think it's really important that we don't also just self-diagnose. I think the worst thing that I know that I've done on certain occasion and other people do is you get on old WebMD and you're like, I have this. Oh, well, I must have that. And so it's really important to get clear, first of all, on
Yes.
what it's not and try to not DIY it too much, correct?
Yes, yes, I absolutely agree. I think talking to your providers about it. I often recommend that if you are kind of in that age frame where menopause is sort of on your mind or possible, you can actually find menopause specialist people that are certified, like I am, through the Menopause Society. So it's
It's
menopause.org. And they
amazing.
actually have a list of providers that are certified. You can search by zip code,
That's
whatever is closest
great.
to you. They have tons of resources on their websites as well. So there's resources, and I tell people to go and seek out somebody who knows this stuff, because like I said, in your training in basic OBGYN residency, you don't get a lot on menopause. So it's really only providers that really seek out more information because they want to take care of their patients. Those are the providers that are really, like focused on this stuff. And you may have a doctor who's not technically officially certified, who's
Right.
well informed, like feel it out. But if you don't, and a lot of people tell me they don't, then
Go
this is where you
find
can
some
find some
help.
more information. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't
Okay.
mean, like, some people are like, oh, I don't want to abandon my doctor. They delivered all my babies and he's been my doctor for like 20 years. I'm like, listen, you don't have to abandon him. Like, go for a consultation just like you would treat any other illness or any other
Right.
problem, right? Go to a specialist for the special problem. That's fine too.
That's amazing. Okay, now I'm going to make it about me for a minute because
I could go.
it's my show. So the reason I'm so passionate about this topic is because I didn't have any help and I had all these symptoms and I was trying to DIY it, and I was possibly suffering from osteopenia. I didn't know any of it. Like, you can't, that's not obvious, right?
Right.
And so, and I was just like, on the internet taking like supplements from ads and things like that. Anyway, I ended up doing HRT, which I think saved me in that respect. But the question that I don't know the answer to, so this was what I would be finding a menopause specialist for, and so we'll just talk about it, is because when I asked the person who I love, who put me on this, I said, how long do I go on this? And he said, well, my wife's 72. And she said, just tape a box to my casket.
I love that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, is that real? Like, do what? Because it's been like 2 years. I mean, like, so again, like, no, how do you know? What is the answer to those questions?
Let's rewind and get the basics on HRT.
Okay, great.
Hormone replacement therapy is not the devil.
Okay? Right. I think we need to say that, because I thought it was. My mom was like,
know.
I think I got cancer. I was like, no, it's probably because you smoked for 37 years.
Right.
But like in her mind, she was like, I took.
Right. And I have a lot of patients who come believing that and then feeling that, right, and scared to take it. Be like, oh, yeah, my mom, my aunt, my grandma had cancer, and they, she took hormone replacement therapy for years. It's had to be that, right? And I'm like, not really, not necessarily. Like, let's really take a look at all the other potential risk factors. So hormone replacement therapy got a real bad rep in the 80s. There was this huge trial called the Women's Health Initiative, the nurses study is what they also called it, where they had like thousands of women and they were looking at like hormone replacement therapy, pros and cons, benefits, whatever. And what really hit the news was when one arm of the trial got shut down because it was like there were some bad outcomes, like negative things happening to some women in that trial. So they turned it off. They canceled the whole trial. They made everyone stop all the things they were taking. And this made front page news. Like the headlines from that time. I went to a presentation once where a doctor put like all the headlines that were coming out in the news, like on this like slide, and it was like, oh my God, it was like Armageddon, like unbelievable. Yeah. And it was one of the worst things that could have ever happened, because what did they do? Just like the media typically does, they took one little thing and ran with it. And then it completely demonized the whole thing. Now, since then, since the 80s now, decades of research have looked back, because we did get a lot of data from that trial, and many other trials have happened since then. Decades of data, decades of review has come to the conclusion that hormone replacement therapy is safe. It is safe. It just depends on who's taking it. The women that were getting sick, they were the women that were in menopause for 10 plus years, more than 10 years. And then they threw some estrogen at them, and then they started getting all these complications. They shouldn't have had that, right? So now we know we don't do that. We don't brand new start throwing estrogen at people that don't need it anymore. Their body can't.
Weren't they older too? Like, yes, weren't they in their 70s or something?
Yes, that's
like
what I mean. They had been in menopause for more than 10 years, and their body had readjusted, recalibrated, didn't need it anymore. So the estrogen was now doing negative things to them. Now, when you look at the women that were in their, mid 40s to mid 50s, even early 60s, starting it, where they were very close to the time they went through menopause or in the process of going through it, they all did great. And if anything, they actually had positives like bone protection and cardiac protection and all these other positive things coming from it, right? So that all got lost. And it wasn't until we really started educating again, and we, again, having practitioners that, really looking for that answer, that didn't buy into the media scare and actually did their own, looked at the research and the studies,
Right.
and got behind it. That's where we started trying to bring it back up. But, it's a huge wave to fight. Like, a lot of people have feelings about this because, it was on Good Morning America,
Generations.
right?
And
Generations.
it was like also worldwide, right?
Yes.
Like this bad news. Because I have clients that are from other countries and they're like,
Yeah,
I know, like, right. And so it's generations that need to be re-educated. So
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So I love this commercial because that's near and dear to my heart. And when I heard that study about that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, because now there's no bigger headline that says that was not the right one.
Yeah, that
not
was
in not in the general media, right?
Right.
Like,
No,
okay.
not at all. So actually, yeah. So anytime I see it in like, mainstream news or on a paper, I'm like plastering it all over my social media because I'm like, look, they're talking about it again. So yes. So now listen, not everyone can walk out there and just get on hormone replacement therapy, right? So you have to be with a provider who evaluates your risk factors and where do you lie? Are you at higher risk for certain things and therefore you should not be on it?
Yeah.
Or are you at low risk and it's safe for you? And how long you should take it, that varies. So the, general sort of safe guideline, they say, 5 to 10 years, then try to taper off. You may not need it, et cetera. But there are some women who they try, they make valiant efforts to come off and their quality of life really suffers. And so that's where you have a good relationship with your provider. You can revisit this annually and you talk about it. Hey, where are we? Risks versus benefits. We still under the benefit category? Wait, keep going. Let's keep going. Let's watch. If anything comes up that's like, no, this is riskier than it needs to be, then we start talking about what alternatives are available. Should we taper off? And quitting cold turkey, I never recommend because you're going to really get hit hard. Try to taper off, go down slowly on the doses, and come off gently. That usually is a lot better tolerated. So again, you can get the benefit where it's really worth getting it. And it really can help you through the transition. Now, that's the other thing to remember. It's a transition still, right? So hormone replacement therapy is not trying to boost your hormones level to when you were 25. It's really just trying to buffer that loss. So it's less dramatic. It's less of a shock to the system. So, it's not like it's going to wipe everything clear, but at the same time, it can make life a little bit better, like a little more tolerable and make, certain issues less of a problem for your day to day. So that's where it can be really helpful.
I love it. So I'm 2 years in. I'm going to talk to my provider. I don't even know if my provider is a certified men. I'm going to find all that out. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about fibroids.
Yeah.
Because I also have so many clients and women that we talk to that have this challenge. In fact, I just have a client who had the surgery and she was like, oh my God, I literally felt better the next, like it changed my life, like the next day. Also, people are really scared about that. I mean, there's so much fear. It's so hard having girl bits. We're so complicated.
I know. Yes, and they do all sorts of weird things. they betray us at the worst times. No, it's real complicated. Fibroids are one of my favorites because as a surgeon, it's one of the things I love to fix because that's great. The next day, they're like, oh my God, I feel different. I feel better. I feel, like everything just feels different. So there's such a clear cut, improvement, and surgeons like immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
So I do minimally invasive surgery. I do robotic surgery, laparoscopic surgery. What that means is small incisions. We go in with a camera. We're able to do everything through little incisions. Still big surgery, everything that happens inside, but all of that little incision stuff makes it actually a much faster recovery. Better, better outcomes, less infection, but less risks, things like that, in the hands of a skilled surgeon.
Right. What are the symptoms, by the way, of fibroids? So I mean, is that something that goes undiagnosed also for a while?
It can. Why? Because women will ignore a lot of things, right? So fibroids are benign tumors. The fibroids themselves don't turn into cancer. They are fibroids. They're benign. They can start out small, like little pebbles in the uterus, and they can grow big. I mean, there's some women walking around with grapefruits, attached to their uterus. Basically, they grow in the muscle of the uterus, and they're sort of these hard nodules. And because they're pushing on the lining that we build every month to have a period, the main symptoms are usually heavy, prolonged periods, sometimes painful cramps. And they get bigger So they like enlarge the uterus. So then they start doing what I call bulk symptoms. They put pressure on your bowel, they put pressure on your bladder, on your back. They can cause back pain, sciatic pain, things like that too. So they can have all sorts of symptoms. Now, size and location is what's important, because you can have big fibroids that are on the outside, but they're not really, causing any trouble with your bleeding. So you kind of ignore it, but then you don't realize, oh, wow, I pee a lot because this boulder is sitting on my bladder. Or if you can even have a tiny little like princess in the pea, like, 2-3 centimeter one, but it's sitting right in the lining, which is disrupting your bleeding pattern and making you have like spotting all the time or heavy bleeding. So size and location are really kind of the important things about fibroids. When they're little and they're not really troubling too many other things, like you could manage medically, right? You could do things hormonally to sort of calm the hormone like stimulation of them so that your bleeding isn't so heavy and things like that. When they get to a certain size, though, you kind of have to address the nodule. You have to actually address the mass.
You have like
you
have a thing.
Yeah.
You have a thing. Yeah.
Right. So the thing's got to go. So there's different ways to address that, where you could sort of zap it. There's like ablation techniques. There's myomectomies, which is where you actually go in and you pluck out the fibroids and you repair the uterus. And then there's a hysterectomy, which a hysterectomy does not equal menopause. So a lot of women are really fearful of having a hysterectomy because they're like, I don't want to go to menopause. It's like, well, you don't, because your ovaries, which control your hormones, keep doing their thing. And the uterus, which has all the fibroids, that's what's being removed. So, and it really just depends.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, most people don't, swear to God. And the thing is, a lot of people, because they don't know what their options are, and someone throws out, oh, well, you got to have a hysterectomy, but they don't know anything else about it, then they just sort of steer clear until things get bad. Right? So then that's when they're seeking help. And unfortunately, a lot of people end up with, bigger surgeries or more risky surgeries and things like that because they waited till the last minute and, they didn't know they had other options in front of them. So yeah, fibroids, that's my thing, because I love telling a woman what her options are and coming to a conclusion that she's happy with, because, that's what we should have. We should have education and sort of have.
Should we still be going and getting, like gynecological checkups? Is it still like a year? Does it get more frequent when you get older?
No, it should be at least once a year. We should continue that. And yes, after menopause, because there are some people who are like, oh, but everything's
I'm done,
I'm done, right?
No more babies. I don't need to take care of it.
No, you still have to take care. So you still need a pelvic exam, which is like an internal exam where you feel the uterus, you feel your ovaries. Sometimes that's the only time you find out these things, is that it feels bigger or bulky. And then a speculum exam to look at the cervix. A pap smear. Typically now the newer guidelines are every 3 to 5 years is fine to get a pap test, which only looks for cervical cancer and HPV. But if you have risk factors or you've had abnormal ones recently, you may do them like annually for a little while.
You know what else I didn't know? So this is for all you moms of young girls, daughters. When my daughter was like, okay, the first one, I have 3. She was like, I'm going to have sex. And I was like, okay, like, thanks for telling me. And so I was like, well, you have to go talk to someone about birth control. Right. And so I was like, and now you're going to have a pelvic exam. Look, I'm like, this is what you get for deciding to have sex under the age of like 18, whatever. But I was happy they showed me. Anyway, so she goes in there and she comes out. She's like, oh yeah, they don't do that anymore until you're like 20 or 21 or something like that.
Yeah.
Who knew? Why? And why? And I think this is also really important for us as parents to be and I think this is a huge piece. So I want to talk about this next, is that just like our grandmas and moms who said HRT is bad, if we're sitting here in our 40s and 50s or even early 60s educating our teenage daughters, right, and we have old information, we're doing a huge disservice. So just for that, like, what is the new, is there new birth control? I mean, they're giving new birth control for all I know.
Yeah, there are. So there's a ton of birth control options, right? So lower dose, different like combos. IUDs are a great option because teenagers can't remember to do stuff. And IUDs used to be like you weren't supposed to have them until after you had kids, right? No, that's all BS. In Europe, they've been putting them in teenagers for decades, and that's why they have such a low unwanted pregnancy rate, because they actually use them on their teens, because that's who needs them the most.
Note that my kid came, was like, I'm getting an IUD. I was like, oh, and then she was like, actually, Mom. So this is really good information. What else?
So pap smears only start at 21. We don't need to do them earlier. Even if someone's been sexually active, it doesn't matter. We do recommend that if they are sexually active, obviously condoms to protect against STD. It's a good idea to get STD testing, which doesn't necessarily have to be a pelvic exam either. And so birth control is a great conversation. It's a good conversation to have early and let them know what their options are. A lot of moms will ask me, when do I bring my kid in? If they have any period problems, heavy periods, painful periods, or missing school because of their periods, that's not okay. Like someone should talk to them about that. So bring them to a gynecologist. And then I often say, yeah, when they're ready to have sex, if you have that kind of open relationship with them, great, that's awesome. Other times it's good. It's sort of like sometime in high school or before they leave for college. It's kind of nice to have like a touch point, like, hey, why don't you talk to this person about this stuff in case you don't feel comfortable talking to me about it,
exactly.
Right? So that somebody they can call if something happens in their college and they're like, what do I do now? Or, hey, I met somebody, like, I kind of want to go on birth control, whatever, like some stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have like a neutral party that's kind of informed that they can kind of touch kind of base with if they need to. So that's what I typically tell people about adolescent visits. And yeah, they do not need the pelvic exam before they really need a pelvic exam. It's kind of like it's unnecessarily invasive. It doesn't really tell us that much information. Now, it's a different thing if they have symptoms of stuff we want to find out, like do they have a cyst or a fibroid or something that young. We can always get them trans-abdominal ultrasounds. Ultrasounds will show us what the uterus and ovaries look like. And then, yeah, sometimes a pelvic exam is necessary, but not every person needs one. So yeah, and that often keeps the teen away a long time because they're like, oh God, I don't want all that. And it's like, okay, you don't necessarily need all that. Just come in and have a conversation.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
See, as moms, we need to get educated because otherwise we'll freak out because it's freaking not 1977. Okay, before we end, we must talk about sex. Yes. You're like, let's talk about sex. So let's talk about libido because I used to only be a dating coach. Now I do a lot more things like that. But I would have women that would come to me in their 40s and 50s and they'd be like, girl, I'm horny. Like, I just need to have sex, right? Like, yeah. It's about that. And then I have other women, and some of them are single, but some of them are in relationships. And they're like, my libido just isn't the same as my partner's. And so, and I think that, and sometimes when that happens to me, I feel kind of bad about it, like, I'm failing in the wifey department.
Right.
So what's the truth about all of that?
Oh gosh. So for women, libido, arousal, sexual function, all of that is way complicated, right? Like there needs to be like so many things in line, right? Like there needs to be like physical, mental, psychological, so many things have to align because we don't get there unless all those things are aligned, right? So first things I typically talk about first, I start with physical. Is sex painful? Does it hurt? Is it uncomfortable? Like, are you lubricated enough? Are you, using a lubricant if you aren't? Are you perimenopausal? Are there hormone shifts? Should you be using a hormone cream down there to kind of help with that? Like what's going on there? Do you get a UTI after sex every time or something like that, which also turns you off, right? Like if you don't want to do it because it hurts and it's uncomfortable or like negative things happen afterwards, like your body's not going to want to do it. How could you have a libido, right? Like your body's not going to want to do something that ends up being a problem, right?
Yeah,
so that's usually the first thing I typically talk about.
That's great.
And then the other thing is like, where are you in your life? I mean, if you've got like 3 kids that you're trying to like get out the door and like all the household stuff and a career and like all these other things that you're dealing with, like sex is like not numbers 1 through 10 of your to-do list.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Need to know. This is what you need to know.
So it's about both you and your partner maybe trying to like work out ways of how do I bring this up to the top of the list. So to me, a lot of times it's like, hey, are you creating time and space for this to be a priority?
Yes.
And are you mentally, psychologically in a good place for it? Like, how do you feel about yourself? Are you feeling like, you're in the slump because you're like failing at everything? And then how, you know what I mean? Like if we're sort of like we're not our own cheerleaders about stuff, then we won't be in this department either. And so I feel like it's so complex, and that's something that I feel also women don't really feel that comfortable talking about because there's so much shame around it.
Yeah.
And then there's also the women that's like, oh, it's menopause. I shouldn't want to have sex anymore, right? Like it's over now. I'm like, no.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Becomes an excuse, right? Like, oh, I've gained weight, or oh, I don't want to have sex, or oh, it's menopause. And that's what I meant by it can be like an excuse. And I didn't mean that. I meant that in a holistic way. Like, are you hiding in that because you're not dealing with other things,
right? Because
you're either too busy or too tired, or you just don't care.
Right. And are you communicating with your partner about that too? Right.
Right.
Like, are you creating the environment that you need. What do you need? Are you getting that? And a lot of times we don't talk about it. So I feel like that gets missed a lot too. So yeah,
and also there's a lot of jokes about it. That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, tons.
Right. There's tons of jokes about, and this is like, I have a pet peeve about this is like the guys that talk about couples. There's like couple jokes, right? Like, oh well, you know, no, just trying to get set, you know, like it doesn't turn us on. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And it's, but I mean, like, again, I think it's really funny that that's part of it. It's like all these negative jokes, but now I'm starting to see a little of the other side of like, well, if you want it, like, here are the things you could do to like,
well, yeah, no, that's
boost
so
things
true.
up. Like, hey, like, what am I getting out of it? Like, I want something fun out of this too. I should be able to enjoy it, etc. So yeah, so I mean, sexual function, sexual wellness, things like that are really like kind of interesting to me. I got involved actually as a medical advisor for a female sexual wellness company for this reason, because I talk about this all the time. And like, so I became like an advisor for Playground, which makes awesome lube for women. And
I love
part
that.
of our process is really just, hey, lube's not gross. It's not something that you shouldn't, you know, something's wrong with you and that's why you use it. Or, you know, it's not just something that like shouldn't be something fun and like made for your body and like important to use. Like, get into it, use it as a positive, use it as something that you're excited about, bring it into the bedroom. Like, your partner should be cool with it. And this is interesting too. I've had people tell me like, oh, well, my partner feels like if I use lube, like he's not doing something right. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
We take everything so personally.
So personally, like, no, this is just going to make things better for everyone involved, right? Like, let's not give it too much meaning there. But yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of things like that we just don't talk about. And I feel like have a lot of negative connotations that, you know, we should be sort of breaking a lot of those, you know, misconceptions.
Okay, I have one more question, one more misconception question. Since you're like so good, by the way. This is so funny, but I don't think anyone ever talks about this. So as you age, or is it not age related, when you use like toys, like dildos, whatever it is, are they bad for you as a woman? Like to put like it, can you talk about that? Because I always wonder, like, what's the conversation? Because also you buy those things, typically they're online, kind of like in secret, or you're like going to a shop with your man and you're not going to be like, so what's this? You know, how is this going to help my vagina? Like, am I going to get an infection?
No. Well, so obviously cleanliness is important, right?
Yes,
like you'll clean
that's
the
a
toys
basic.
and make sure that they're clean. That's a basic.
Yeah.
Use a lubricant, things like that. Figure out what's good for you. I encourage it, because our bodies do change and there isn't anything wrong with using any of those things, any toys or any aids, or however you want to do it. And actually often I'll encourage people, because some of the things that change is like what feels good, what's pleasurable, right? Like, how do we orgasm? Is it internal, external? Maybe it's not clitoral stimulation anymore. Maybe it was in your 20s, but that's not what does it for you anymore. Figure it out. And I think toys are fun to do that with. And like, that also kind of helps you figure out what's good for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it can also sometimes help from the libido side of things as well. I mean, introducing it into the relationship, make it fun. It doesn't have to be like a lonely, shameful thing you do, when you're alone. Right. But so yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I think, again, if you're using it in a proper and safe way and all of that. And to me, I think it's helpful and fun. And I talk to a lot of women about it who aren't comfortable or like never really thought to use it or wasn't part of their generation to do it. And I'm like, hey, why don't you explore that about yourself a little bit more and get to know yourself? And that's part of encouraging your libido too, because you do lose it if you don't use it. That's another thing. Like, if you get so far removed from arousal and sex, like, you're not going to want it anymore, because your body doesn't even remember what that feels like anymore, right? Yeah. So get after it.
It's funny. So I didn't watch, we're recording this in October. The Golden Bachelor is happening. And, so I watched the first episode, but one of the things that I thought was really powerful that pertains to this conversation is one of the women's like, this part of me was like dead and buried for like 15 years. Like, I forgot how to flirt. I haven't kissed a guy in like a million years. And when I heard that, I didn't really think about what you just said, that if you don't use it, your body doesn't literally remember how.
Yeah. And you basically package it up and you put it away. Dead and buried is exactly how it feels, because and this can happen even in a relationship, right? Even in a marriage, even in a healthy marriage, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're so focused on everything else, and you guys may have a great partnership, in a great relationship, however it might be, if this isn't tended to, if this isn't paid attention to, if you don't make it a priority and talk to your partner about how you want to make it a priority, because that too, you might have both drifted away from it. And sometimes it's just about bringing it back to the forefront of like, okay, how do we do this again? Like, bring it back. And that can be fun.
And last question, we'll talk about men here for one last second. So if you're dating someone and your partner has erectile dysfunction, is that like, oh no, right? Like, is that, because as we age, I know that that's a lot of what keeps men and women from connecting in intimate relationships. So as a woman, how do you support your guy? What's the conversation? What's the information about that, so that we can not take it personally, like the guys
it's
are
not
when we
personal.
don't get aroused?
Yeah. One, it's not personal. Two, they have a lot more resources and a lot more funding behind the options that they have available. So there are medication options that they can use. And so talking to a urologist, talking to the primary care doctor about that, encouraging that if that's something that they're interested in, that you would be supportive of, just being like, listen, if that's something you want to explore, why don't you just go find out about it? Right.
Yeah.
And then besides that, there are plenty of other ways to have fun. I mean, that's not the only way. I mean, penile penetration isn't the only thing that wins. Like, so you guys can potentially start using other things.
Can we make that like a hashtag?
I love it. I say these things on these podcasts sometimes, and I'm just always like,
I love it. I mean, it's just like, hey, we should all wear t-shirts that say that.
Yeah, I mean, explore other options. Like, there are so many other fun things that can both be, arousing and fun for both people involved. I mean, it's not even our only erogenous zone, right? Like, get creative. So it can still be fun, and you can still have connection and intimacy even without that, even if there is ED.
Oh my gosh, you are so smart and so fun, and I just want to talk about sex with you all day long. So let's talk about, how do you get connected? So I want to know, is the playground, is that the product that you are? So do you want to just talk about that for 2 seconds? And all this info is in the show notes, but first of all, just go to the website, because it's just so beautiful and feminine, and just makes you want to go to, like, I don't know, Cabo, or I don't know, some island somewhere.
Yeah, it's fun. So it's helloplayground.com. That is one of the places you could find me too, because we just launched a section where it's sort of like office hours with Dr. Shyama, where you could ask questions about sexual wellness, and we'll be doing posts and videos and things like that.
Love it.
But it's a great product. I got tied into it totally, like, kind of, the universe kind of brought me to it, sort of, in a way. Like, it's these two women, incredibly smart, successful, talented women, that just basically in the health and beauty sphere was like, there is a huge gap in sexual wellness. What can we do to kind of really bring attention to this? And this is what it was. They formulated a lubricant that is sort of designed for women, in the sense that it doesn't disrupt our microbiome. It keeps our pH balanced. It isn't supposed to be irritating. It's not sticky. It's not gross. It's pretty. Everyone should have it, like, at the bedside. It should be part of your routine. And it's true, because it's just you taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your parts like you would take care of anywhere else in your body, right?
Like I read somewhere when I was looking at your stuff, it's like, we put moisturizer in our faces.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And so it's just, why would we not keep everything? I mean, it's our skin, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. And there's so many things that can lead to vaginal dryness, like, in any age. And this is sort of like the thing people don't understand. Birth control pills can give you vaginal dryness. After having a baby, when your hormones are off, that can give you vaginal dryness. When you're older and you're going through perimenopause, or menopause itself, or if you're going through treatments for other conditions, those medications, right, can make you feel all that way. So it's something that you kind of have to maintain and support. And pain is something that I'm really sort of, I harp on this with people, because it's not a push through the pain type of thing. If it becomes painful, it is something that will actually trigger, like, a negative response, not just low libido, but you will tense up. It becomes painful every time. And then that becomes a bigger issue you have to work to undo. So you really want to be attentive to that. If it's painful, it's not okay. Like sex should not be painful. That's like bottom line. So they were really just, Playground was just such a great platform from an education standpoint, an interest standpoint, a product that I could really get behind. And I just kind of love like their story, their kind of philosophy.
I love that. Well, we will have all that info in the show notes. And then also you can just find out more about Dr. Shyama Mathews on her website, which is Dr. Mathews, GYN. Notice the OB part isn't there because that's not her specialty. And where are you based? Oh, you're in New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey. Yeah.
So fly to New Jersey, go to New York, go do shopping, see a show, and get your bits looked at by Dr. Shyama. Sounds like a great fucking week to me. Ladies, oh my God. Okay, so this one, like, you can share it with your daughter, you can share it with your best friend, with your partner. Everyone should life check themselves when it comes to their girl bits. Thank you so much for being here. I just so appreciate it. You can always find out more and follow us, Marni Battista _ on Instagram, Marni Battista on Facebook. Also go to instituteforlivingcourageously.com. Check out our new website there too. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.